Okay, hi. Good morning and good evening, wherever you are joining us from. And thanks so much for joining us today. It's really nice to meet all of you. My name is Sarah Tiam, and I'm based in San Francisco now. I'm actually part of GovTech, working on engaging the tech community here in Silicon Valley and also in the rest of the US. So yeah, really nice to meet all of you today. If you're joining us from Singapore, from the US, or even if you are somehow awake in the UK time zone, welcome to our live chat at Inside GovTech. So today, we are going to have a conversation about how a few GovTechies on our site have made an international career in tech and how they've recently moved over from the US to Singapore, which is really, really exciting. And of course, today we want to keep it as conversational as possible, not just among us ourselves, but also together with you out there watching. We know that now it's COVID, and we hope that everyone is physically and mentally safe. We also want to have as much social interaction with you as much as possible, because it's not just a normal webinar. So definitely pop in your comments in the live chat there, or send in your questions to us, and we will do our best to answer them. So without further ado, let us bring out our three speakers for today. Very, very exciting. We have Samya with us, we have Wang Zhen, and we have Ziyuan. And I'll let them start off with a short introduction for each of them. Samya, would you like to start?
Hey everyone, I'm Samya Ramakrishnan. I'm a lead engagement manager with a product management team called called Codex. And we take care of products called Government Commercial Cloud and Singapore Government Tech Stack. My role is to drive adoption of these products across the agencies. Very excited to be here.
Okay, Wang Zhen, how about you?
Hello, my name is Wang Zhen. I'm a distinguished engineer working on API marketplace and API strategy for GovTech. Previously, I joined GovTech as a Smart Nation Fellow. And now I'm excited to be working on the project full time.
And Ziyuan, last of all.
Hi everyone, my name is Ziyuan. I am an international engagement manager in the NDI team, otherwise affectionately known as SingPass. I manage G2G collaboration projects, so really happy to be here and speak with everyone today.
Very cool. And I think SingPass recently just won some awards on some international tech award show. So yeah, congrats, and really exciting to be working on that. Yeah, so I think all of you are calling in from Singapore now, and we have a Singapore-US thing going on. I'm just about to have my dinner, and you're just having your breakfast or just had your breakfast. Just to start off, like wondering what is your favorite Singaporean breakfast food that you probably missed when you were in the US and you're really glad to have right now?
Kaya toast. That's my favorite.
Oh my God, I like that too. That's like anytime I go out, it's not just breakfast, it's anytime food. Kaya toast tetarik.
I actually forgot to bring. Yeah, I forgot to bring Kaya over here, so I'm honestly a little bit sad. We had like a college social, I think 1 month ago, where the prize was Kaya, and everyone was really excited.
Oh.
What is there something that you can't actually get in the Bay Area? Like I didn't think that way.
I have to find it, but I need recommendations.
Yeah, but it's like I think you can, but it's a very different version of it. They call it like coconut jam. So you probably could find coconut jam in the Bay Area. Then it'll come close because it's kind of like coconut and sweet. But yeah, Kaya is better.
And then I have to make my own gula melaka.
Yeah.
All of you were based in different parts of the Bay Area, is that right? And also New York as well.
Yeah.
I think.
I moved from.
Yeah.
So I lived in the Bay Area for 3.5 years, and then I moved to New York for a year before coming back. And speaking of like dinner and breakfast and all of this food stuff, yeah. I mean, Sarah, we were just talking earlier, right? Soufla, goodness, okay. So I think soufla and kaya toast same level. Like I miss soufla today, and I wish I could like have it like delivered right now.
there's pretty good Greek food in Singapore too. But you and I were just talking before this about how souvla is a big Singaporean thing where I just posted it on Instagram and immediately everyone replied and said, "Oh, souvla, you should go check out souvla." So I don't know what the hype is. It is good, but it's definitely really hyped up. Samia and Wang Zhen, how about both of you?
So I lived in Sunnyvale, Bay Area for about 2.5 years. So before that, I used to live a long time in Singapore, 2.5 years in the US, and then I just got back a year and a half before, around end of 2019, I got back.
I lived in Mountain View and Menlo Park for about 10 years, just to be close to my former employer, Google.
Yeah, all the way out in Mountain View, which I have yet to visit, but definitely planning a trip down there as well.
Yeah, it's a nice place.
Yeah, for any of the audience, like if you all have recommendations for food places, especially for me, please drop them into the live chat. I'd love to take a look and maybe we can compile this and share it back to the community. Okay, so moving on to actually what we're here to talk about today. So all of you actually did recently make a move from the US back to Singapore. Back to Singapore, and for some of you newly moved over to Singapore. So Wang Zhen, Singapore is a whole new place for you when you moved over. So it must be a very exciting experience for you right now. Maybe not so exciting in current times, but it will be exciting to come. So I think what everyone's really interested to know is that prior to GovTech, what were all you working on? I know you just shared which areas you were based in, but everyone's kind of interested to know what were you doing before you joined GovTech in your current roles? Maybe we can start with Wang Zhen.
Okay, so previously I only worked in the private sector. I worked at Google as an engineer, and then later I became an investor. I joined GovTech because I've never worked in the public sector before. Yeah, I'm curious.
Curious, how has your curiosity been going? Has it been satisfied? How's it been?
So far so good. I'm still working here. Actually, I initially joined GovTech as a part-time Smart Nation Fellow, and then I converted to a full-time employee.
Yeah, so the Smart Nation Fellow is an interesting path into GovTech as well. I think it was 3 months, right, or so on a project. Yeah,
it's normally 3 months, but it can be extended to 6 or 9 if you want. Yeah.
Samia, how about you? What were you doing before coming to GovTech?
So I graduated as an engineer. So I was working in IBM Singapore for about 4.5 years as an engineer and like in sales operations roles. Then I moved into marketing. And that's when I was working with Google for about 7.5 years with Google marketing, both at like Southeast Asia, APAC, and finally I was with Google Cloud based out of Sunnyvale. And after that, I quit Google and I wanted to start off something on my own. So I have my wellness passion pet startup that I put in place, took a couple of years to put in place. That's still running. And then I felt I wanted a full-time job while the startup was set up in a way that it can run on its own. And I was kind of, I like impact space was something that I was kind of dabbling with, and NGOs and all of that. I had tried freelancing projects, and that was kind of slow for my pace that I would like. And GovTech was a company that I started, or an organization, I shouldn't say company, an organization that I was tracking. Like basically around COVID, like you were also getting all these tech apps traced together and all of that stuff. So I was kind of tracking, and I was really keen, and it felt like a good place of impact as well as actually getting the results out, and kind of a space that I want to be. So my journey has been like a full one circle, like with like private tech companies, startup to public sector. So I'm very excited. I joined I'm 9 months into GovTech, and I'm every day morning I look forward to work. So I think that kind of says it by itself.
Yeah, because we were just talking about this earlier about how you've really done the whole circuit of different organization sizes, and we're like, Samir, you should write a book. What, like, I mean, if you were to write a book, like, what would be your biggest takeaway from like the huge diversity of experiences that you've had overseas?
A huge diversity of experience. I think the overseas experience, like coming to Singapore when I was in my high school, was again an overseas experience, and that kind of shaped me in a way that was, I practically grew here. And then I grew up I'm originally from India and I moved here. And when I went to the US, I kind of thought I was like all open, and I have done that overseas learning kind of done. But after 20 years, when I again did that shift to the US, it shakes you up in very good ways. It's kind of hard when you're like going through the change, but it questions your assumptions and all of that. And I can bet that if I had not left Singapore, I would not have ever quit Google. I would have been pretty comfortable with whatever I was doing. But having quit and tried new things and tried really, I grew as a person again after when I went to the US and I got back. So I really highly recommend it.
Okay, and Ziyuan, what about you? What were you doing before this?
So before I moved back, I was based out in New York. I was working in a location-based mobile advertising startup, and I did CRM marketing for them. So CRM marketing, not quite the I call and build relationship. I actually manage CRM systems. So integrations from Marketo to Salesforce, and I try to plow through the user journeys and make sure I engage them at the right time so that these leads convert into customers. So that was my previous life. Now that I'm in GovTech, then that's a very a shift. So I don't have to convert anybody. I don't have to use tech to move the people in other governments. But I think the skill set, nevertheless, is still the same. It's communicating, it's engaging, it's also understanding what makes people move, and at the same time understanding different types of tech, from sales and marketing tech to now tech that interfaces with everyday citizens. So yeah, that has been a fun shift. But I think in New York, I do miss the energy. I miss the vibes, the people, and just walking down different streets. The other day, I was just talking about Trader Joe's, just simple things like that, right? So that was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, other than so I agree with Trader Joe's. I think someone was the one that told me this best kept secret, and I do think that it is, $2.99 for a whole box of strawberries really makes sense to me. Yeah, but besides the sights and the sounds of New York, like what when you were in New York and also in the Bay Area, like what was your biggest takeaway from your time overseas?
I've always tried to keep myself challenged, and I think I underestimated the challenge moving overseas. Because so some background, right? Before I went over to the US in general, I've been in Singapore my whole life. And then moving overseas, then was the first time just living for more than a year plus. So I thought it would be the same as just staying for 3 months, but it's really very different. Just understanding a different culture, navigating the systems, knowing people. But then at the same time, you question a lot of assumptions about yourself. Like Samia just said, if you had never moved, you wouldn't have questioned all of those. And now that I think my mind is stretched, I see things in a different way. I think it doesn't always translate into money. But it actually added a lot of color to my life, and I wouldn't do it any other way.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. And I also see some comments coming in from the live chat section. Well, thank you, Jordan, and thank you, Colorful Parallels, for sharing all the recommendations on food. Well, yeah, definitely we'll check that out. Also, as all our speakers are sharing about their journeys, if you also have questions on the things that they're sharing about. If you would like to find out more as the conversation is going along, you can always pop a question in. Doesn't always have to wait until the live Q&A, and we'll ask those questions along as we talk. Yeah. Moving on to the next question as well, and thanks so much, all three of you, for sharing about what we were doing previously and also how your overseas experience has been. Coming to where you are at today, I think one question that was submitted by one of our registrants that I think people are curious about is what kind, if any, of culture shock did you experience when transitioning from an overseas work environment to a Singaporean work environment? And I think we can also start with Wang Zhen on this question, because you've also had the opportunity to work in many, at least, a few different areas as well. So you probably will understand better about what transition is like and what a difference in culture is like. So have you experienced any culture shock moving from the US to Singapore?
For me, there's not really a cultural shock, because I lived in Singapore many years ago as a grad student. Yeah, not really, but there are some cultural differences. For example, I noticed that people in Singapore are generally more conservative and risk averse, whereas in Silicon Valley, people take more risks, because I think maybe failure is less, destigmatized in the Valley, and people are willing to try out new things.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And today in your teams, when you do work, then do you think that you bring that kind of risk averse mindset to your work as well, and to try to improve things in a different way?
Well, I mean, risk aversion is not a bad thing per se, especially in the public sector. We should be very cautious.
That's true. We are dealing with a lot of important projects as well for the nation.
Yeah,
so
taxpayers' money.
and taxpayers' money. That's true. Okay, well, culture shock. How about the other two of you? Did y'all experience any culture shock?
Moving back was like seamless. Like Singapore is always the most convenient. It spoils you for every other country. Like if you have dealt with processes or Singapore government processes, it's kind of always seamless. So moving back was very seamless for me. But my culture shock, not like a massive shock, but the day I was going to join GovTech, I was like, I knew that my official laptop may not have internet, was where it started. I was like, oh my God, how does this even work? But so now we do have internet. Like it changed, the policy changed 2 months after I joined. So that's a welcome change.
Yes, we should debunk that myth that we cannot access internet at all. It's actually
you can now access internet, but we couldn't when I joined like last August. But so that was kind of shocking. Like I did not realize that, because like when you work in like tech firms like Google, Amazon, all of these companies, like security is still kind of like they're very paranoid about security. But then they still manage to keep it open for like your daily work environment and all of that stuff. So I was kind of surprised where this was coming from, and I have like a more nuanced opinion about it now than when I joined. But yes, that was a shock for me, and it improved. So now it's no longer shock.
I can't believe your biggest culture shock is the internet.
Oh yeah, totally.
Speaking about
don't you know, it's like you can live with apart from oxygen, water, food, and then internet is the fourth thing that you need.
Internet.
Yeah.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to point out that like speaking of change, right, and culture shock, right, like it's also surprising that we're able to adapt as an organization so quickly. Like from one that cut off internet totally to during our span of time. I mean, this must have been in the works for a long time, right? But yet it also shows that we're able to keep up with times and change and adapt to feedback and just be responsive. And so I think, okay, maybe I set the bar very at a very moderate level, but then at the same time I think it's actually quite impressive to see changes happen over time, and also like understand that the leadership is also always listening and being very attentive to the feedback, right? So yeah, I'm actually like impressed.
It's true.
And Zian, like what I have, like in the last 9 months, I have had projects where the leadership thought it was kind of important and like everybody rallied around it and the turnaround was very fast. I've seen that one thing happen, and I've seen like things take time. So I guess if it is critical enough, people come together, or like if it kind of, yeah, I think I've seen both.
I just want to add one more point on second thought. Maybe the lack of a cultural shock is by itself pretty unusual, because I expected GovTech to be, bureaucratic, but it's actually similar to a tech startup, somewhat.
Right.
I mean, there are red tapes, of course, but more or less, it's like a typical tech startup.
Right. I mean, like you wouldn't want it to be 100% no red tape and be exactly the same as private companies. Then I would actually be very worried as a Singaporean citizen. Like, why is this organization doing with my resources? So I think it's a hard balance, right? It's so tricky to be progressive and be experimental and take risks, but then at the same time be responsible and be accountable to the public, and then you're always towing that fine line. So I think they did a pretty good job so far.
Definitely think that they, I personally also came from the private sector, and I do resonate with what all of you have shared. I do think that there are areas where it moves a little bit slower, but there are also things that are critical to the nation, and those move actually really quickly. So so far I've been pretty impressed with the agility that we've had. To answer the question on culture shock, I think it's a mixed bag. Half. And I think it's also a lot to do with setting expectations. And I think we were talking about this a little bit earlier on as well, how you had the opportunity to have your expectations set either by talking to someone within GovTech or talking to someone affiliated to us. In Wangchen's case as well, being a Smart Nation fellow has given you time to get an expectation of what to expect when you move into GovTech, and that has also helped to some extent. Who actually did y'all talk to before coming over? I'm quite curious to know about the organization. Was it someone on the overseas team, or?
Like there was a Zoogler event done in SF. That was so the first time I saw GovTech was long time ago. There was this MRT, there was like this rogue MRT compartment that messed up like the entire, was causing delay in the entire network.
Mm-hmm.
There was they did some data analytics to spot the one thing that
one glitch,
So it was based on data, and I saw the article, and that's the first time I kind of, oh my god, this is like awesome kind of. I had kind of thought that was the first time I heard about it. The second time was there was an event organized for Zooglers and GovTech. I think someone like you, Sarah, like in SF, had organized an event with the Zoogler team, and I had attended that event. And then when I wanted to started to look for job and all of that, so I connected with David Ho. David Ho is like, anybody in Bay Area who doesn't know David Ho, he's also
David on the line. He has to be.
He has to be on the line.
If you say his name 3 times, he will appear.
Yeah.
David.
Anybody in the US, a Singaporean who doesn't know David Ho, I would be surprised. I don't know, at least that's what my perception of David was. And I connected with him, and then I got connected with HR. So the HR, Prasad was ex-Googler in here. So I connected with him, and kind of then I spoke with almost 5 or 6 HR before I started interviewing for my role, kind of a thing. So that's how that was kind of it was kind of informal, not so much I went to the site and I kind of clicked up around. And for that, I want to say I really liked GovTech HR, because I kind of came through and I was interested. They even called me when they were trying to profile me for different roles. And And so they would keep me updated on like some roles. And then they even called me when they said, oh, we thought about this role, but I don't think you're a fit. Like that was the first time somebody was calling me to say that I was not. Most of the times it's like you get to know that you didn't make through the interview sometime. But yeah, so that was very interesting. And I kind of like there was one role they were considering, and then after that I spoke to my current manager Kevin, and then balls started rolling.
Mm-hmm. And Wang Zheng, did you also go through David, or were you like, did you speak to someone else within GovTech?
Actually, Shen Hong reached out to me, and then I got connected to Casey, and
Right.
then more people in GovTech.
Yeah, so
And
Shen
for
Hong
those-
was my predecessor and I think some of you who are listening in as well might know him. So I'm glad to know that our team reached out to you, and that's why we have you, and that we're so lucky to have you as well.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah, and I think
I saw some announcement on ex-Googler, mailing list, and I reached out to see to learn more about the opportunities, and then Shen Hong got back to me.
Oh, okay, so good to know, and I should make sure that I also get on that list in case there are any more of your friends that are keen.
The guy who is organizing this is also Singaporean or Malaysian, one of the like the Zoogler host at that point. I don't know if he's still doing it, but yeah.
And that actually brings me to the next question. Now that we're talking about how you got in contact with GovTech, one of the questions from our registrants is also to ask, why pick GovTech over private companies in Singapore, given that Singapore's tech ecosystem is slowly growing and we have a lot of, actually really quickly growing, and we have a lot of opportunities here as well. I'm curious to know from anyone who wants to share as to why you picked GovTech over private companies.
Sarah, I think you should arrow.
Arrow myself to start, and why
Shoot
I chose
the arrow. Yes, go for it.
no. So it's more about all of you, and Siren, why don't you start then, since you brought up the arrowing concept?
Whoa. Yeah, okay, fine. I like indirectly raised my hand, right? So wow. Okay, so I think for the most part, like when I was in the private sector, there has been a lot of chance, right, to grow like professionally, exploring different roles, understanding different types of jobs, and also figuring out what I want. But I realized that, after a couple of years, I couldn't quite find that spark in me to know that, like, hey, the work that I'm doing is actually impacting people at a large scale. Now, granted that in private companies you can do that, but I think there's a lot more work in like GovTech that you do that serves public good, that doesn't necessarily get pushed out in private sector companies, but yet it's necessary for just the betterment of everyone who's living in this society, right? So like, take for example, like Safe Entry, like Trace Together. If you were to try and monetize that, then that would be a massive like endeavor, right? You just need to with the privacy issues and with all of that, but yet it's necessary for this pandemic at least, right? So so it's things like that make me realize that, hey, being in the public sector is a place that I want to be in, and at the same time I get to be involved, at least in my role now, in conversations around where the next phase of the next intersection of government policies and tech will be. So that's very, very exciting, right? And I think in the private sector, you get to work on very exciting things, but it doesn't come back to this like inner drive to serve public good. So I think that's what convinced me that this is where I want to be. But I get it, right? For different people, it's different. So I don't know, what does everyone else think?
I think on serving public good, that's actually I think it's an important and interesting point that the audience is curious about. Speaking of public good itself, we've received some questions on the projects that Wang Zhen has worked on as a Smart Nation Fellow. I think people are also curious to know, for the Smart Nation vision for Singapore, what was the interesting things that you worked on, which I guess also led to your decision to choose GovTech at the end of the day. If you can share a little bit, Wang Zhen, about the projects that, what you worked on before joining and what you work on now, people would love to know.
Sure. So I've been working on API strategy, and more specifically, a API marketplace for across the whole of government. So the idea is to facilitate data exchange between the public sector and the private sector. So we want to open up more API services. You can consider it as a government as a service at a very high level.
I think we are moving towards that as a smart nation, right?
That's right. Yeah, to be a smart nation, we need more APIs.
Was that the project that you were working on as a Smart Nation Fellow, or in your current role as a distinguished engineer?
More or less the same. Yeah, it's actually why I chose to stay, because I need to launch something. I want to finish my work.
I hope it doesn't finish too soon.
For the private sector is that I echo Ziyuan's sentiment that GovTech is doing meaningful work for the public good. And I've got the impression that GovTech is a very progressive agency. So yeah, and I want to contribute my experience.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear you say that as well. I think APIs is not an easy thing to fix as well for the whole of government. And yeah, for you to say that we are considerably agile still in that space, I think means a lot coming from you. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. And also, for Samya, like you also, chose GovTech, and you had probably a lot of options out there in the private sector as well. People also want to know, like, why did you choose GovTech other than private sector?
So I think, like, for me, I told you briefly, right? Like, I had been tracking GovTech for some time, so I was impressed with, like, I was kind of like very curious and impressed with the organization for a little bit. And impact has been something that I have been pursuing as like my parallel life to my professional life for a very long time, since probably JC or something. So what happened was, I had tried while I was doing my startup. I had tried a lot of freelancing projects with nonprofits. So one is how fast they move, plus like my own skill set, what can I bring into the table? Like, I come from a tech marketing background, as well as what comes as an output, like how impactful the NGOs or whatever are. And a lot of organizations are doing great work, but I couldn't find a perfect fit for me in that space. And I had reached a point in my career where like just a title and my paycheck is not going to keep me excited about my day job. So I was kind of like razor focused on GovTech. Like, that was the only kind of company that I really wanted to get in. And if I have to be honest, I started applying when COVID had just hit. So most of the private companies weren't hiring. So it wasn't, it kind of like played to what I was looking for, plus like what I was, what the market state was as well.
Okay, yeah. I guess it all worked out in the end, right?
Yeah.
Just right. For better or for worse. Yeah. Sorry, yes?
Oh no, I just wanted to point out one more point about Wang Zhen's work in API marketplaces. I mean, I actually haven't seen API marketplace in being led by the government anywhere around else, anywhere in the world, right? So that in itself is already a very progressive step towards an intersection between private and public sector work. And I mean, the work that we're doing here is very interesting as well. It's not just specifically, I mean, like for all of us serving public good, yes, it is core, but then there's also other things that also drive us, right? Like how interesting the work is, and just being very progressive, yeah, about where things are going.
Yeah, I think as a smart nation as a whole, API marketplace is one. We're also playing with the concept of providing data sets for the public to use and to adopt, national data sets that we can use. So that's great. And we're also playing around with a government commercial cloud and also infrastructure that is consistent across the whole of government, so that it's easier for us to build apps for the nation. So I think the smart nation vision is really coming together, which also leads me to my next question for each of you, just to change up the mood a little bit. What is something really cool that I know, what is something really cool, not just the day work that you do, but something really cool that you're working on right now in GovTech? It could be a side project that you're doing, it could be a employee group that you've joined or lead, hint, hint, or it could be a special project that you're working on to experiment. What's something cool that each of you are working on right now?
In GovTech, right?
Yeah, related to GovTech.
Okay. I can go first. So
yeah.
I recently joined the Women in GovTech ERG, the employee resource group, as Sarah's baby. Actually, it's Sarah's baby that I have taken over.
It was other people's baby that I helped to push out.
Sarah and a few other people who have created this baby. So I'm kind of excited. I think we are starting this conversation on inclusion, making sure. I mean, I think there was a base level. I haven't. The environment is fairly good, but I think there's a conscious move to talk about gender diversity and inclusion conversations and making that a part of culture. There's a good push to it, and the senior leadership management has kind of they have engaged with us. We had a couple of meetings, so it was nice to see how leadership was interested in this space. And it's just been a month, so we just had some initial conversations. It was very exciting to see fellow people who are interested in the space, and I'm looking forward to exciting activities that comes out of it. And it's also my opportunity, because it was COVID, you don't see people in office, right? So this was my opportunity to meet across the board different groups. So it's kind of exciting. Yeah.
I'm also very excited.
4 times, so you know how I like this project.
I'm also very excited. And it's not just me and Soumya. We also have quite a few male allies on the team as well. So we're pretty excited about that. But not over pivoting on something that is my own baby. Wang Chen, how about you? Is there something interesting that you're working on right now that you're experimenting with? We also have quite a few engineers who've joined us in the audience. So feel free to go really technical as well.
Okay, sure. So I actually want to highlight some projects, very interesting projects I've seen in GovTech. Not that I'm directly working on it, but I find them very interesting. For example, GovTech has this department called SIoT, Sensors and Internet of Things. They are working on some very interesting physical products, like smart gyms, smart buildings, and emergency systems for the elderlies that are both technically cool and socially useful, I think. So yeah, kudos to Yangbun's SIoT team.
I remember I went down to the office when I first started, and I was introduced by Yangbun to the SIoT floor. It's a very interesting and exciting space, physical space, where they're always inventing all these new things. And I saw the smart gym that you mentioned. I saw the treadmill that Joaquim was working on. It was really cool.
Yeah, they also created many fancy gadgets for people with disabilities.
Oh, what did they create? Actually, I haven't seen that yet.
Like the voice-controlled drawing canvas.
Oh yes, yeah, that was really cool. I saw that one too. Yeah, and also I think there was this other piece I saw. It was like a button that you press for senior citizens in Singapore.
Mhm.
That's really, yeah, that can like trigger an emergency call for help. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. The SIoT space is definitely one that's very exciting. Yeah. I remember, so just a fun one to share. I remember that during the COVID, like, and it's still COVID now, but we were actually manually helping to put together the trace together scanning machines for the shopping malls and all. But it was all done within GovTech with us volunteers just putting things together to try it out. So that was fun. Yeah. Ziran, how about you? What's something cool that you're working on right now?
So there's two things. One related to my everyday role. Just being involved in conversations around the world about digital identity. I think that is not often talked about. At least when I was in a private sector life, I haven't been. It's not a conversation that often comes out. But then there's a lot of innovation in that space. There's a lot of collaboration also. And just one general topic, right? Like self-sovereign identity. This idea that everybody can and have control of their own identity in their wallets. It's very progressive. I think it's very cool to just learn more about it and be involved in conversations. I think the other one that I volunteered for is also so it's an app called PetGoWare. I don't know if you guys have heard about it. So I just volunteered for using my spare time, right? Yeah. So true story, right? Like I have a pet at home, and one day he actually my dog actually ran out of the home, and we didn't know if we could actually find him or not. So thankfully he came back, but that was a shock to everyone at home, right? And this app that GovTech created at the start, it wanted to solve problems like this, and I think it was a very small team at the beginning, and now we're trying to grow this app into other spaces and other use cases. But I think yeah, these are some of the interesting things that I've seen. I'm like, oh wow, very cool.
Okay, yeah, I know the PetGoWare one is a cool one that I think the whole GovTech community is coming together to work on. It's all voluntary basis, but excited to see what comes out of that. Yeah, save the pets. Okay, and I think let's move on to the piece. I think because we also are coming towards the end. Well, sort of, we're coming towards a live Q&A. But one thing that I think is really important for our audience today. We have a lot of questions around advice for careers, advice for joining GovTech. And since you have really accomplished a lot in your different fields of work, we have some questions and advice for you. The first question being, what is one skill that you think is really important to have in your field of work? Maybe Wang Zhen, you can go first. Oh, Samia, go ahead. Please go ahead.
Sorry. Okay. I think, of course, you need all your technical and your job related skills. The more you have, the better it is. But I think one skill that is kind of essential is to be open. Like you can't come in with your, like you should know what your assumptions are when you make statements. And all that I've seen, like even when you're trying to scale something into different agencies and different public sector groups and all of that stuff, you should understand the nuanced conversation. When they say it's going to take certain amount of time, it is because of certain reasons. And of course, you need to question those reasons, but dismissing those reasons may not make you effective. So how do you be open? At the same time, how do you question whether it is really essential is the way I would like. I think that's kind of essential when you come into, and if you want to be impactful in your role within government and GovTech.
Actually, Samia, I want to add on to that, right? Like being able to listen also, and then as you're listening, understand what the other person is saying, and also reading what are the things that are not said. Because there are oftentimes actually, most conversations happen. There's a lot of background context that's not said, and you have to kind of piece two and two together. And then once you piece two and two together, understand what the main crux of the problem is, and it's often like it changes from time to time, right? So being able to write that crux down and communicate that to various people, I think that is, and write it simply, right? In very simple English, go straight to the point. That is a skill set that I thought was just a given, but when I came in here, I was like, whoa, okay, this has taken that skill set to a whole different level. So just being aware of listening and writing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And aside from soft skills, coming to the hard stuff, people also want to know, like, hard technical skills. What is important to have? Wang Zhen, as a distinguished engineer, what do you think?
I would say the most important skill is a meta skill. You need to be able to adapt quickly and learn and pick up new skills, because the industry is changing so fast. Maybe 20 years ago, PHP was the most important skill you need to pick up, and now there are so many new things, and PHP is a running joke. I don't think we are using PHP at GovTech, I hope.
I don't think so. Yeah, for the purpose of this conversation, no, we don't. Yeah, I do agree. Things do change really quickly for the engineering side. I think even from the talent team, we do ensure that people are always coding, as actually consistently coding for the past 2 years at minimum, because things change so quickly in tech.
Yes.
Yeah. So so basically, from the three of you, it's basically listen, think to discern, and also keep Googling to see what's the latest tech. And then also on this question, we also have a question from the audience asking, what is a tip for job interviews with GovTech?
For technical roles or?
Technical and non-technical. So if in your experience, so if you want to share about technical, go ahead. If you want to share about non-technical, that's also okay. But specific to GovTech, what do you think is something that is a good tip to have? Yeah, I can start first because I'm from the talent team, so maybe I'll share one while you think about that, because I know this is a new question. I think one tip when you're interviewing with GovTech is to empathize with what the public sector, how the public sector thinks about things. I think it's more of, being from the private sector previously, you think a lot about profit driving and ROI from your product, but in the public sector, it's very different. It's more about like the trade-offs of if you do something, can't satisfy everyone, but which one comes first, and what are the trade-offs of doing this one thing versus the other. So that's my tip for your interview. How about the three of you? What are your tips?
I think they should assess the interviewer and as well as the culture fit for themselves. Like, I think it's a two-way conversation. As much as GovTech interviews the candidate should also have an awareness, especially if you have not been in public sector, to get this sense of where you see the culture of the team is. So it's important for you to be listening to the interviewer and like asking the questions, be proactive in asking, and that can, like, I wasn't very surprised about the culture of my team or overall, like I could get a fair sense of how things are, and it wasn't very different from what I had gathered from the interview. So I think it's important for them to be proactively gathering that piece on culture if they are going to make a shift from like private to a public sector.
Yeah, and you can always get in touch with our teams via LinkedIn. You can really, we constantly talk to GovTechies about just replying on LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out to us if you are keen on finding out more about the team. And what about the rest?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
And my tip for software engineers is to get more involved with open source development. Having a GitHub repo, a profile, is very useful. It sends a pretty strong signal that you are passionate about software development and constant learning.
And would you say that GovTech is becoming more open source now?
Oh yeah, actually, if you look at OGP, the Open Government Products team, they are doing a lot of work in the in the open. So do some of our teams under ACE.
Mm-hmm.
Like the blockchain related projects, they are all open source. I think we also recently open sourced a reference implementation for Trace Together.
Mm.
I would say
Yeah.
GovTech is pretty open about open source.
Yeah, we are. Actually, that's one of the reasons why I joined, because I attended a talk and I was impressed that we turned around to use open source containers within a year and a half of inception, idea conception. Yeah, so that was pretty interesting. And lastly, Ziyuan, what about you? What's your tip?
So I think being able to articulate the main point of the role that you are interviewing for, and how you are fit for the role. And then after that is all of whatever everyone has said, right? Like the two-way street, like what Sonia said, and then your hard skills and stuff. But I think when you're going for interviews, oftentimes people start talking about themselves a lot more and missing the point that the main point is trying to drill down to what's the point of this role and how you're a fit. So I think being able to tease out what exactly the role is for, how it fits into the bigger picture. And if you don't know, ask during the interview. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your tips and advice for people like the audience who are asking about this. And now actually I know we've been kind of just taking questions live anyway, but now we're moving into the last section, which is the live Q&A. So we actually have a board where we've been putting the questions into, and people have been voting on what's the most exciting, like what's the most popular question for them. So I'm going to read out the top question, which has 7 votes. The question is, what misconceptions about career growth opportunities in the Singapore tech industry did you have before returning to Singapore? And how did you go about resolving these misconceptions or getting around them? Okay, that was quite a mouthful. Yeah, I think, just take some time to think about it, and whatever comes to mind, I think it's an open space you can share as well.
I was with Singapore Tech Space even before I went to the US. I don't know if I had any specific misconception as such. It is
or concerns maybe.
Like I think like the opportunity, the type of opportunity, I think has evolved over a period of time. I guess when I was like doing engineering related work, like about 10 years ago or so, it was kind of very limited, like application development for specific spaces. But I think the startup scene is much better now. Like I think there are more type of engineering work and more interesting startups that are coming in. Like I'd seen a few interesting ones in biotech, consumer apps and all of that stuff. So that space is kind of evolving, and I think that there's some interesting work going on there. So I think it has opened up a little bit more from where it was about 10-15 years ago is my sense. I don't particularly have like a misconception. Maybe the misconception is it has opened up. I need to go there and work to figure out whether it has opened up or not.
So I
maybe more concerns.
Misconception. I had a misconception that government agencies would not hire foreigners like me. That's easily debunked.
Easily debunked, definitely. Yes.
Yay.
Proof. Actually, that was one of the questions that people have voted a lot on as well, whether we do hire foreigners. Was it actually, do you think that it was pretty smooth for you getting into GovTech?
Oh yeah, it only took a few months.
Yeah. And yeah, we had pretty smooth conversations, I remember, through your process coming in.
Right. I think it can ideally take only 1 or 2 months.
Yeah.
If you have all the application materials ready.
Yeah, I think we're definitely open to having foreigners come in as well and to share the expertise, and also diverse perspectives with the GovTech team here. yeah, like you are doing today, which is great and working out really, really well. Siren, how about you? Did you have any concerns before moving back about the Singapore tech ecosystem?
Misconceptions.
Concerns, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the
Okay.
reason why the reason why I moved overseas, I wanted to experience a bigger market. I thought, in America is the biggest market in the world, but then at the same time, when I moved back, I realized it's not just about Singapore, it's about the region. It's about access to other places too. And that really like shifted my whole mindset after I came back, right? It is a bigger story. It is not just about Singapore alone, is how we fit into the broader ecosystem here. So, and by broader ecosystem, I mean like Southeast Asian market, right? Let's just look at Southeast Asia alone and not look elsewhere, because if you want to jump elsewhere, then that's also possible, and because we're a lot closer. And yeah, really excited about the opportunities here.
Yes. So thanks for sharing on your concerns / misconceptions about that. I hope, audience, I hope that you got some answers there. And we can continue to find out more. I mean, you can always reach out and talk to any of us so that we can answer more of your questions. I did have one last question just right before we end. I think it's an important question, so I'm also going to raise it from the audience. The question is about the work culture in Singapore. And so particularly in respect to mental health awareness, I think it's a growing topic today. I think, with COVID, a lot of people are remote working, and that comes with its own suite of issues to get past. And so how is mental health awareness in GovTech and in the Singapore ecosystem today? What's all of your views on it?
I start?
Yeah, so please start.
So I'm actually very impressed with GovTech so far. Like, we've made a very public effort from management down, right, to everyone that's working in GovTech, to let them know that there's help lines available, and mental health is something that everyone is concerned about and is taking active steps to manage. And I'm just really thankful that there are resources available in the organization to help with that. And coming from my own experience, like before I moved over, I never thought this was a conversation at all. Now that we're back, and then this is a thing, and this is something that everyone cares about, I think that's new and really I'm really appreciative of.
We were just talking about how it might make us realize, all the emails on mental health awareness might make us realize that we actually need help, which we didn't know before.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, like the
and I mean, it also helps with all of the policies, right? Like there's a oh no, go.
Oh, why don't you finish your thought, like you're talking?
Oh, so Samia, go ahead.
Okay, so I think, yeah, so I think the support services that I saw in GovTech seems to be at par with like what I've seen in private sector. So they were like access to hotlines and experts and all of that stuff. And we do regular webinars, and that was kind of on mental health specifically. But what I think I like what impressed me the most is my own team culture. Like my manager is very open about like talking to us about mental wellness. Like recently, like we moved into phase 2 where your kids are at home, like with HBL and stuff like that. He proactively like called out to say this can be more stressful, so just make sure like you guys are taking time to manage your life and all of that. Like, just your manager watching out for you and saying those things as part of culture is kind of important for me, and I really appreciate that, and that is happening within my team for sure.
Okay, and last of all, Wang Zhen, what about you? Did you experience anything, any of the notes or any of the emails that have helped you in some way, or made you realize that it's a topic that we can have in GovTech?
Oh yeah, I do get some emails, but I don't have much to say about mental health awareness.
It's okay. It's a very new topic, I think, and it's something that's growing. I personally would say that it is on par with private sector, and I think it's something that is slowly gaining traction to be more openly spoken about at GovTech. Yeah. Yeah, okay, so I think that's mostly it. We actually have a lot more questions, but unfortunately we are out of time. I just want to thank all of you, all three of you, for all your sharings, very open sharings, and insights. And and to the audience out there, thank you so much for all your questions. If the three of you are okay, actually, I'll share those questions in our group chat after this, and then maybe we can write a written response on the LinkedIn Live page, just to follow up, because these are great questions as well that we were not able to touch on today. Yeah.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was fun conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks, Wang Chen. Thanks, Soumya. Thanks, Suren. Thanks all for being on this morning.
Thank you.
Alrighty, have a good day, good evening, everyone.
See y'all again.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so also for the audience, thank you so much for tuning in. We've also come to the end of the session. We will leave this page to run on for a little bit longer. We've obviously just heard from 3 great GovTechies on their sharings and what they've experienced. Of course, they are on LinkedIn. You can always message them, message me. I'm based in San Francisco. You can always talk to me anytime if you're based in the US. I'll share some links as well for people who are located elsewhere to talk to, but we're definitely really open to answering any thoughts that you have. Yeah, so I'm going to share a little bit on the QR code for if you're keen to find out more about GovTech, which will appear on the screen right now. And also you will see 2 emails below, one from people who are based in the US, can reach out to me. So you can, basically answer your questions about GovTech, if you are keen on any roles, or if you're just keen to either mentor with us or be part of a project with us, we can chat a little bit more. If you are based in the UK or in Europe, you can reach out to my colleague Jia Yi. She's really, really nice and really friendly as well. So just drop her a note there. For anyone else based elsewhere, if you do ping us on LinkedIn, we will direct you to the relevant resource and to keep you connected as well. So just reach out to us there. Also, just to let all of you know, we have another live chat coming up in July. This one will not be for the US timing. It will be for the Singapore timing, but it will be live again, and you can always watch the recording right after that. But we will have engineers from our different capability centers. Like we mentioned, the Census IoT team earlier on, we'll have people from there. We'll also have people from CyberSec, Cloud and Infrastructure, Apps Dev to come on and share about what they do day to day at GovTech. A little bit different perspective, but a little bit more into the details. So you can join that session coming up in July as well. Just make sure to follow us on LinkedIn. That's where we post a lot about what we're doing and what's coming up. Follow us there, follow us on Facebook to keep up to date on what's coming up from GovTech. And yeah, really great to have all of you today. And we look forward to your feedback as well. I'm gonna flash up the feedback QR code. We want to hear from you, and we want to know what works and what didn't, what we can improve on as well, and what more you want to hear from us. We will keep this on as a series, so definitely look out for the next one as well. Okay, great. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.